Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show. You just saw him, the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com, Andrew Malcolm at AH Malcolm on the Twitters is number one in your hearts.
Yeah.
And we will not be talking about NFL football today.
No,
both of our teams
I guess not. I guess we wouldn't. So Jordan Love was better.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah. I did watch a little bit of the Browns game, and I was thinking, if it goes good tonight, I might have something to say to Andrew tomorrow, but it didn't, so I won't.
But it didn't. Yeah, right. Well,
lots to talk about.
Yeah. Anyway,
we have lots to talk about. At least we're not the NBA. I mean, have you been following the scandal, the NBA? I mean,
well, when that gambling started, I don't know. I've never been into gambling. I mean, I've bought a couple of tickets at dog races, but I've never been into gambling on games. They're so malleable. Who would?
Well, I just think I think it really is sort of a. I mean, there's a cultural moment. I'll probably talk about it with Christian Toto tomorrow, but I mean, there's certainly a cultural moment here that is worth discussing, I guess. But this is a century of really good policy about not getting in bed with gambling to maintain the integrity of professional sports leagues. Yeah, and I think that this is really going to be scratching the surface. And I think this particular administration is going to be actually kind of enthusiastic about pulling the curtain back on some of the stuff that's been going on. So I think this is just getting started. And professional sports may never be the same thanks to their, getting in bed with professional gambling.
I mean, I can't understand how they did it because it's so risky and so subject to personal avarice that, and you see what some of these players do with their signing bonus, getting Lamborghinis and stuff like that. That's fine. It's their money, but it just shows the lack of caution and the desire for a lot of money. And there is a lot of money for those players. So, it's just this scandal isn't strong enough, but we'll have to do.
It was so unnecessary. This is what the thing is. It was so unnecessary because they were already making more money than, Midas. I mean, the NFL especially, but the NBA too. Maybe the NBA even more so. They were practically printing money at the NBA for the last 20 years. So why get into bed with DraftKings and the casinos, except that they wanted more money? And
they wanted more money, but the states allowed it. See, and the states wanted more money too. Back when Atlantic City was talking about gambling, I worked with Wallace Turner, the great San Francisco bureau chief, who was an expert on gambling in Vegas, and he said this is trouble, but nobody wanted to listen because the income. The money is so huge for states too. I mean, it's what do they call it? A harmless tax or a victimless tax that they get millions and millions of dollars, and nobody's protesting it because they're voluntarily gambling. So you're right. It's dangerous.
Yeah, I just think that they're killing the golden goose. But let's speaking of killing the golden goose, Democrats today.
Ed and his segues.
My segues. I will put my segues up against anybody else's segues.
Put them on your tombstone.
Well, you had a piece on Thursday, right? It says, "Will Democrats who will save Democrats from themselves in 2028?" Well, there's an outfit called Welcome, I guess, that I don't know if you saw this today. Semaphore first reported it, where this is sort of like the Democratic Leadership Council sort of moment, I guess, from 1988, or something like that. 1989 was right after Dukakis got clobbered. Where you had, where really the caucuses in both the House and Senate were at least pretty well balanced between what we would call liberals today rather than progressives. A few of them were progressives. Most of them were liberals and centrist, blue dog Democrats, right? And they said, look, we're going too far to the left. We need to tack back to kitchen table issues. James Carville was part of that back in 88. Well, he's part of this too, apparently. Or at least they're talking to him about this. And they're saying the same things. And we've got to stop talking about saving democracy and stop talking about LGBTQ plus IAE, whatever, They got to talk about issues that matter. Securing the border, exactly. Fighting crime,
boys out of locker rooms.
Boys out of locker rooms, exactly. And
girls' locker rooms, yeah.
Yeah, boys out of the girls' locker rooms, yeah. Hey, look, when I was in junior high school, boys out of the locker rooms would have been fine with me. I was a smaller kid, and at that time I was a smaller kid. I didn't hit a growth spurt until a little later. It's like, yeah, I would love to stay out of the locker room. I don't care whose locker room it is. I don't want to be in it. Yeah, I mean, this has zero chance of moving forward because there's hardly anybody in the Democrat Party who believes it, right? I mean, maybe Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, Dan Lipinski. Oh, wait, they all got forced out.
Rahm Emanuel.
Well, yeah, and he's not in Congress. I think Rahm Emanuel, which is odd because he's not in Congress, but
he's built. I'm not advocating for him.
No, I understand.
I knew him in Chicago when he was beginning in politics, and he is the wiliest SOB I have ever met politically. He used to come to my office. I was the bureau chief for the New York Times. He would come to my office and offer tips on inside Chicago politics to cage a free lunch. And we did that a few times, but he saw that I wasn't quoting him, so he dropped me and moved on. And the next thing I know, he's national chair, finance chair for Bill Clinton. Now, here's his resume. This is a warning. Here's his resume that he's built. He was national finance chair for Bill Clinton when they successfully went for 2 terms to the center. He was a key aide to Bill Clinton. He then went and made a fortune in investment stuff. Then he ran for the House. He was in the House, in the early 2000s. He, not Nancy Pelosi, he was responsible for the 2006 Democrat revolution when they took back both houses in the Bush administration, and Nancy Pelosi returned to the speakership. And he did by carefully picking candidates who were in the middle, who were marketable in the middle. Then he was an advisor to Barack Obama. Then he was chief of staff to Barack Obama. Then he was mayor of Chicago. Then he was mayor of Chicago again. And then he was ambassador to Japan, where he was surprisingly outspoken for an ambassador, and I guess pretty popular for an ambassador politically. So he's built a very impressive resume. He's keen-eyed on picking issues that resonate with voters. And you now see him all over the place where you wouldn't expect to see him on Joe Rogan, Megyn Kelly, Bill Maher. He's on did an op-ed last week on the Wall Street Journal op-ed page. So he's positioning himself. And, what he's saying is, we've got to get back to teaching math and stop worrying about boys and girls' locker rooms. because China is eating our lunch. And maybe that's
yeah.
Maybe I'm gullible, but that works for me. So anyway, he's a shark. Okay, I mean he's
sharp. He's sharp, but
he's a shark. Yeah.
But even he's on the outside of mainstream Democrats, you know.
You're absolutely right. But if things don't go boffo for the Democrats next November, they're going to be looking, as they were after Dukakis, they're going to be looking for an answer. And he's positioning himself. I don't know that he's going to win or not, but as far as Republicans are concerned, they need to watch this guy.
Well, yeah. And again, I think that, first off, I'd almost look forward to Emmanuel as opposed to some of the other people that are getting, you know, to me, it's almost a sanity check, right? You kind of need to have two sane parties if you're going to have a two-party system.
Exactly.
If one of them's absolutely bat crap insane and they are aligning with, you know, 15% of the electorate, you're basically handing the keys off to one party for the foreseeable future. And it's not good for the other party either, because without the usual, the disincentives. They become arrogant. Yeah, right.
They can become arrogant and crazy, and all you have to do is look at California, where he has a super majority, Newsom. And I don't understand how they could keep voting for Democrats in California, but they sure do. And they're focused on the crucial issues like banning plastic straws and little tiny shampoo bottles in the hotel bathrooms. They did that.
Did they really? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. Yeah. They did that a long time ago. They were bragging about that one.
Is that the reason why we got the body wash and the shampoo and the conditioner pumps? I didn't know that. That's actually kind of funny. I had no idea. Mostly because, you know, I don't really use shampoo for the obvious reasons. And secondly, I really hate not having a bar of soap in the shower. I don't like the body wash.
See, Ed, there's a reason why we've been together all these years. It's
Stetler and Waldorf.
We like a bar of soap, not little things that you have to do every 15 or 20 seconds.
Drives me nuts. You know, and if I'm traveling long enough, I'll go out and buy a bar of soap just to stick it in the hotel room. Oh yeah, I don't even those little tiny little bars. I'll take those if I can get an extra one. But honestly, sometimes I'll get a fresh boxed one and I'll throw it in my suitcase when I travel, because I know it's first off, it's cheap. I can just, I can leave it and it's fine. But especially if I'm going to be gone more than a couple of days, it's like, the bar of soap has to come with me. That's actually funny. I had no idea where that came from. I just thought, whatever.
This is breaking news. Yeah.
Well, to me.
Shows
you how much I travel.
They banned plastic bags too. I was living there then.
Well, that I knew. That I knew. You have to pay for the plastic bags too.
Yeah. And but you couldn't. You had to have paper straws, which are good for about 2 sucks, and then it's just wet paper, and you can't get the milkshake out, which is an important issue. It's an important issue, Ed. This is something that we care about. So,
I recall.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say I can't have milkshakes anymore because of the sugar in the milk. But I do recall that when I did have them with plastic straws or with paper straws, they were just impossible. You just had to take the lid off and just start doing this and run down your face. Yeah.
Well, we have consumer advice here this week. And so what's your segue to what matters?
Well, I mean, again, this is sort of like old men shake fists at clouds. I mean, where we're going with this, actually. But to get back to the Democrats' conundrum, I guess you can say. And it's not just 2028, it's also 2026. You're right in pointing this out. Oh, yeah. These guys are on the far left fringe of everything. And I mean, what Welcome, the group that this is called, is saying is just simply common sense, right? If you want to win elections, you have to appeal to the majority of the electorate, or at least enough of them to get you within range of a majority. And they're not doing that. They're actively trying not to do that. And it doesn't take a whole lot of insight to stop and say, wait a minute, what the hell are we doing here? We're arguing for open borders, for not deporting criminal illegal aliens, for letting criminals on the streets, for letting boys go into girls' locker rooms. And it's like that one scene, I forget what the comedy show was, where the two Nazis are talking to each other and one of them turns away and says, wait a minute, do you think that we're the baddies?
Yeah. You know, one of the things that strikes me, I could be wrong about this, but is that part of the reason for this insanity and going for issues that are crazy, losing issues, is because Trump is for them. And he's very smart. And so you mentioned this in a long time ago in a show, where he will pick an issue that's not all that important, but he will take a position, and then the Democrats just jump in with such enthusiasm to the 20% part, and they've left themselves out on the far left. So the Trump derangement syndrome has merged with their instinct to spend a lot of other people's money.
Yeah. I mean, this is, yeah. I mean, and that's really what this is. And I would argue it's because they're not really interested in, what's the word I'm looking for? Convincing voters of the wisdom of their position. Yeah. They're interested in forcing voters to accept their will.
Right.
And
exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
See?
So they're not even making an argument anymore. They're just basically saying the other side is so bad, you have to give us power. And it didn't work. That was their argument in 2024. And this group is saying you can't keep making that argument. The point about saving democracy being, of course, the most ironic, because Donald Trump got elected. He's doing pretty much everything he said he would do during the election campaign, and they're screaming that it's illegitimate.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
No kings, no kings.
I mean, it's just silly. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them who have bought in, but not enough to win a presidential election. Maybe if they're concentrated in certain districts, they'll take the House back. But you're right.
I actually think with redistricting that's getting less likely. I mean, certainly they're not moving the needle on the generic ballot. And that's where you'd expect to see some evidence by now that whatever they're doing is gaining traction, and it's simply not. I mean, this is with the Schumer shutdown. We're got news this morning as we're recording this on Monday that the largest federal employee union, AFGE, American Federation of Government Employees, I believe is what that stands for. They represent 820,000 federal bureaucrats. This morning issued a declaration telling Senate Democrats to vote for the continuing resolution and put an end to the shutdown, which does a couple of things. First off, it increases pressure on Schumer to do just that, but it also makes it clear that it's Chuck Schumer that's doing the shutdown. Now, as of recording this, it doesn't look like Schumer's changing his position yet, but it's not really Schumer that has to change his position. It's, the so-called moderate Democrats that might respond to this welcome, autopsy.
Didn't three of them, Fetterman,
Angus King, and I think the senator from Nevada,
the woman, Maria, nothing.
Cortez Masso or something. I'm trying to recall her name. She's kind of a backbencher. But I mean, I'm assuming that if this is kind of a acid test, right? I mean, this is this group is, with all the thinkers saying, okay, we need the centrist Democrats to take control. Well, here's a great opportunity for them to do that. It only takes 5 more to step up and vote to end the shutdown by ending the filibuster and allowing that continuing resolution to come to a floor vote. They're not even willing to do that so far.
No.
And
I think the SNAP running out of money for the food stamps, that's going to put some more pressure on them to do something. And Schumer, he's a sneaky old guy.
He is that.
Part of the diverse leadership. He and Jeffries are both from Brooklyn. He will figure out a way to create an apparent victory that is really just a cave. Because you're right, they have to do something. They can't stick in now, and the blame is, as wishful as some of the left publications are, the blame is centered on Democrats and Chucky.
Well, my guess is that in the next couple of days, Schumer won't change his position, but because they're going to put this thing on the floor every single day. They've been doing it all along. And I think that maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, it gets to the floor. And at that point, you suddenly magically see 5 or 6 Democrats decide that enough is enough and vote to end it. And then Schumer has to then, and I'm sure Schumer would arrange that. He's just going to make sure that he saves face so that he's not the one caving. But he'll probably arrange it so that 5 or 6 of them, if you get enough of them to go across the aisle, it's going to be tough to go after all of them. But yes, that's an interesting thing. I don't want to miss out on talking about your other article. This was from yesterday. Trump finally jacks up pressure on Putin, but now today we got a little bit more of this pressure on Putin, because just to do a real quick rundown before we get to your column. Last week, Donald Trump decided he was going to impose some pretty heavy sanctions on Russia's 2 largest energy companies, because we actually hadn't sanctioned them up until that point in time, trying to cut off all of the oil sales for Putin. And then Putin decided that he was going to test his big nuclear powered missile. They had a test on it yesterday, and said, this is the greatest thing since gunpowder or whatever it was that they say in Russian. And Donald Trump this morning or last night said, yeah, we don't have to fire missiles 8,000 miles in order to get to the target. We've got nuclear submarines right off their coast, and they know it. So if they want to get into it, basically, if you want to get into a pissing match, we can whip them out and see who's bigger, but maybe, but it's the only thing that's going to happen is everybody's going to get wet. And that was sort of Donald Trump's point. But I think that this is the language that Putin may actually understand. And if Putin doesn't understand it, I think some of the people in Moscow might be starting to get worried about what the U.S. might actually start doing, including maybe passing on some of those tomahawks. Clearly, Trump is sick of this.
They should be worried about it. And Trump is a wonderful negotiator, but he hasn't been with Putin. He's been hesitant, and he has said in his book and all along that the most powerful thing in bargaining is the ability to walk away. He has not walked away. He has threatened serious consequences if there's no ceasefire when we meet in Alaska. There wasn't. So there's no serious consequences until now. Now, I think people, and this is one of the points I made in the column yesterday, people might think since 2008, there have been so many photo ops announcing sanctions on Russia that there couldn't be that many people or companies left there to sanction. But there are. I mean, and as you pointed out, these oil companies, this is a big deal. He won't stop the oil sales, but he will make it much harder. They can't get their money through certain banks, through a lot of banks. And it's discouraging because people who help the Russians get around are also subject to the sanctions. It's not just the company. And there's something like 36 subsidiaries of these two oil companies that are also included in the sanctions and the people who run them. So it is a big deal. You might wonder, why haven't we done it before if it's so serious and if we're so serious? But sanctions haven't worked. Now, they make life harder for the regular people in a country, but they haven't changed government policy. We've been doing it, as I said, since 2008. And then 2014, Putin went in and knowing full well there'd be more sanctions, went in, took over Crimea and parts of eastern Ukraine, and then he invaded fully. So sanctions, economic sanctions, have not worked since 1992, when it forced South Africa to start abandoning apartheid. And they're great for photo ops that you can look tough announcing this time we're going to sanction this and this and this. And there have been some victims of rich people. If they leave their yacht in Monaco, they might be subject to losing it. But I'm very cynical about changing Putin's course without something else. And if Trump really, he said so many times, I talk to him, we have good conversations, and then he doesn't do anything or he bombs Ukraine some more. And I've had enough of it. If he does something more about it, he said no tomahawks, because it takes 6 months to a year to train the crews. And he said he thinks the war will be over by then. I don't, unless we give Ukraine something to really change the course of events. The Russians have gained a few thousand square kilometers more of territory during this summer fighting season, which is going to shut down here now with the cold weather coming in. But Putin is counting on the patience and will of the West to crumble, as it did in Afghanistan after 20 years, and as it did in Vietnam. Because he doesn't have voters saying, we don't want to get anybody more killed. We want to end this war. He doesn't have that. People who oppose him have some terminal trouble.
Yeah. No, again, I think you're right. I'm a little worried about the escalation of the rhetoric, but mutually assured destruction doctrine still exists. It's not a Cold War relic. It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate fact of life, and it's something that Putin has been trying to leverage for the last 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think Trump is saying, if you really want to go down that road, we have options, and you're not going to like them. And I think, again, his whole thing is just trying to motivate Putin to actually negotiate in good faith and to bring an end to the war. That's it. That's all Trump really wants. He wants to be able to say, I have ended this war too. And look, we talk about sanctions not necessarily moving Russia, but they have moved some other countries in the last several months to come to the table, right? Azerbaijan and Armenia. You got Thailand and Cambodia today, which I think it was today or yesterday, announced an actual comprehensive peace treaty. That was a armed conflict that went on for a few days before Trump threatened both of them with economic sanctions if they didn't stop. So it does have an impact sometimes.
They waited on the treaty signing until he was there so he could do it in Southeast Asia. He's doing a lot. He's a wonderful negotiator. I always go back to, do you remember the Woolman skating rink?
Yes. Yeah. It's a great story.
It took years and years. The city of New York was going to fix it up and get it open to the public so New Yorkers could ice skate in Central Park, right across from the Plaza Hotel, which Trump used to own. So they didn't. It was like rebuilding the Bruckner Expressway. if I went back today, having lived there years ago, they'd still have the signs up, construction underway. So Trump said, okay, look, I'll fix it up and I'll do it for this money. And they said, yeah, right. But they finally allowed him to do it. And he did it under budget in less time. It's like 6 months and the rink was fixed. This is the way he does things. And it's very powerful for voters. So more power to him. I hope he pulls something off in Ukraine, because he's right. There's an awful lot of people dying and children left without parents and fathers.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I think we are just about ready to wrap up this week's podcast, but we have to have some jokes of the week, because this is pretty heavy stuff. We need some jokes, lighten things up.
We got to have lighten things up here. I have one. And that is, there's a patient is meeting with his doctor, and the doctor hands him a bottle of pills, and he says, take one of these every day for the rest of your life. And the guy takes the bottle, looks at it, and there's 3 pills in there. And he says, there's only 3 pills here. And the doctor said, exactly. I just love that. I just love that.
There's a funny ad. I forget. It's for one of the discount cellular networks, where they're saying it's $25 for life. And they said that's a really great deal, even for Bob. And Bob is a guy that looks like he's in his 80s, right? And Bob looks over and goes, $25 a month for life. That's a great deal. And they're all just sort of staring at him. Anyway, all right, I got a couple for you here.
Okay. Hit me.
Short one and then a slightly longer one. Short one says, a man goes to his lawyer and says, look, I need to make a will, but I don't know exactly how to go about it. And the lawyer says, no problem, leave it all to me. The man looks at him and says, well, I knew you're going to take the biggest slice, but I'd like to leave a little bit for my children too. Leave it all to me. So, all right. That one's a little... So one day, Jimmy's walking down Main Street when he sees his buddy Bubba. And Bubba's driving a brand new pickup. And Bubba pulls over to Jimmy with a big grin. Jimmy goes, Bubba, where'd you get that truck? Bubba says, well, Tammy, she gave it to me. She gave it to you? He said, I know she was kind of sweet on you, but a new truck? He says, well, Jimmy, let me tell you what happened. I was driving down Country Road 6, middle of nowhere. Tammy pulled off the road, put the truck in 4-wheel drive, and headed off into the woods. So I follow her. She parks the truck, threw off all her clothes, and says, Bubba, take whatever you want. So I took the truck. And Jimmy looks at him and goes, you're a smart man. Them clothes never would have fit you.
I didn't expect the aftermath line. Yeah, I
still think you got the better deal, by the way. I think this truck was the better deal. So there you go.
Yeah, right.
Right. But then clothes never would have fit you.
Well, you're getting a little R-rated these weeks.
I am. Ed. Well, PG-13. I'll say PG-13. That's jokesoftheday.net. I love going to jokesoftheday.net. They got great stuff over there. So check that out if you enjoy these, and even if you don't, because maybe I picked out the ones that weren't so good, but check that out. All right. Andrew Malcolm, the prince of Twitter, the regent of redstate.com. Go to redstate.com/Andrew Malcolm, I think, right? Is it redstate.com/Andrew Malcolm? Author/Andrew Malcolm. Excuse me. Redstate.com/author/Andrew Malcolm. Yeah, because we don't make things easy at Salem.
Well, we do have cheap rates for subscribing now to VIP.
We do. Boy. 74% off in the Schumer shutdown thing. That I don't think that's going to last much longer either, people. So as soon as the shutdown's over, we go back to the other discount codes. You want to get your subscriptions in now. But this podcast is never behind the paywall, so you can always watch.
Nor should it be.
Nor should it be. That's exactly right. All right, Andrew Malcolm. We'll talk again next week.
Okay. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everybody. See you then.